Hello and welcome to the first Typical Boro podcast of 2025. Happy New Year to everybody. I'm your host Steve Dixon. As usual, can I ask you please to subscribe to our YouTube channel? If you're listening via any other platforms, please rate and review. Very important to help this podcast continue. As usual, you can hear on the Red Radio every Tuesday, 6 till 7. So I'm pleased to say I've got my usual sidekick with me today, Mr. Graham Bandera. Happy New Year and welcome, Graham.
Happy New Year, Dicko.
And we have a special guest today. We have the Northern Echo reporter, writer, and 50% of the You Are My Boro podcast, sorry, Mr. Dom Shaw. Welcome, Dom.
Hi, lads. How are you doing? Thanks.
All right, Dom.
Thanks for coming on, Dom. Good time to get you on with all things going on in the transfer window, and Middlesbrough Football Club haven't opened down as per usual.
Yeah. After the up of Hull, the down of Cardiff, and
Yeah.
atmosphere of the season, really.
Right, we'll get cracking. We'll start. I know we've missed a few games because we had a week off for Christmas. However, football moves fast, and so does this podcast. So we're going to start with yesterday. Middlesbrough 1, Cardiff 1. There was 3 changes to the Middlesbrough side. Doak, Bergzog and Borges come in for Jones, McGree and Lucas Engel. Graham, you were at the game, the same as myself, and yourself, Dom, but I'll start with you, Graham. What were your thoughts on yesterday's, say the first half?
First half, I was quite encouraged. I thought we started quite enterprisingly, really. They were wide open, to be honest. They played the same system as we played, and it was a complete matchup. We managed to find little pockets of space, get between the lines. We managed to free Doak up on quite a few occasions, and obviously a little bit of class from him to go skip past his man, whipping a beautiful cross, 10, 12 minutes, Lath on hand to tap it in. So great start, brilliant start. And then we continued to go at them, but just couldn't find a way. They obviously got, it was a fortuitous goal, really. I mean, it was Fry's error, which cost us the goal, cost us our goal. And it was one of them, it was an avoidable goal. It shouldn't have happened. He's trying to basically chop the ball into an area where he was hoping that there was no one there. Obviously, it just fell beautifully for Callum Chambers, rifled it top corner, 1-1. From there on in, we got nothing. They just started to regress. They went into a low block. Second half was pretty awful, really. We just couldn't break them down, and it was the same old familiar tale. So probably a game of two halves, similar to what happened at Hull, if I'm in all honesty. But obviously at Hull, we got the injury time winner, which sort of put a little bit of a different perspective on the game. But yesterday, it was disappointing, but same old, same old. It's not something we haven't seen before. So it was frustrating. We're using that word pretty much every couple of weeks now, and it is very, very frustrating. But we're still in the mix, which is good because other teams drop points. So not too despondent.
Dom, is that how you seen the game? I mean, me personally, I thought it was a real opportunity. I thought Cardiff, who were missing 2 or 3 strikers, were a good side to come to the Riverside. I know Middlesbrough have got this reputation of giving points away against the lesser sides, but after a really encouraging, it wasn't a great performance at Hull, but to get that last minute winner, it just felt like it had galvanised the fan base, and the boost it would give the squad to get the last minute winner. And you come into Cardiff, and they've got a few problems of their own. You get the 1-0 up with a brilliant goal, great play by Doak, whips the ball in, Latte, great run to the near post, finishes it brilliantly. You think, right, let's go and kill the game. Let's Middlesbrough use some game management, which we've been lacking quite a lot this season, I feel. To let Cardiff back in before half time with another sloppy defensive error and going at 1-1 was a bit disappointing, yeah?
Hugely disappointing. And we sat in the press room beforehand and said, wouldn't it be nice just to get a routine home win? Boro haven't had anywhere near enough of them this season. They haven't won enough games at home. We'll get to that, I'm sure. Carrick admitted that afterwards. I think 6 of 14 won at home, which clearly isn't promotion form. But after going 1-0 up against the Cardiff team that have won 1 in 11, that have only won 1 away from home all season, they've picked up a couple of decent results recently, but the second bottom in the league, you hope at that point kick on. The goal, Boro need to do better, don't they, for the goal. But then after that, it gave Cardiff the opportunity to regress, like Bandy said, to sit deep, to get to something to protect. But we spoke to Dan Barlaser after the game, and he said, he wasn't saying it in a like you don't understand way, but he said only when you're on the pitch and playing against 11 men who are just sat deep, you realise just how difficult it is to break them down. I completely get that, but the reality is, if you want to win promotion in this league, you have to find a way to do it, because Leeds will face the same, Sheffield United will face the same. You know, we go up and watch Sunderland as well. Obviously, we cover Sunderland at the Northern Echo. They've faced the same in all games this season. I'm going to watch them play Portsmouth this afternoon. I suspect they'll face exactly that. They might not win. I don't know. We'll know by the time this comes out. But that's the reality, isn't it, of being at the top of the championship. And you've got to find a way to win those games. The second half I thought was really disappointing because it just felt very flat, didn't it? And Carrick said as much afterwards. It was interesting because kind of said it was put to him, you know, another frustrating result. And he said, well, no, I think it's more than that. I don't think it's just frustrating. We didn't play well enough. But he said, it's frustration that prevented us from getting what we wanted, because we got frustrated in the second half. And I think the point he was making was we maybe tried to force it a little bit rather than sticking to our game. I don't think Boro ever really looked like scoring in the second half.
No.
You just mentioned that you interviewed Dan Barlaser, and he said you don't understand what it's like to play against 11 men behind the ball. Well, I think it helps, Dan, if you pass to a red shirt, because I don't know what he was playing at yesterday, but I'm not a big fan of Dan Barlaser, I'll openly admit it. But yesterday he reached new levels of disappointment for me. He's in a key position in that Middlesbrough side. You know, Aidan Morris is missing, which is a huge loss. He's had an opportunity to step up, get a relationship going in that middle of the park with Hayden Hackney. And, you know, we're playing against Cardiff, one of the poor sides in the league, where we had 75% possession. And we do absolutely nothing with it. And Dan Barlaser, to me, is a key component to why it didn't work yesterday. He's on every free kick. He's on every set piece. He's the man that gets the ball in front of the back four and's got to dictate the pace. And Middlesbrough's build-up play was lethargic. It was slow. His set pieces, his free kicks were diabolical all afternoon. How he stayed on the pitch is beyond belief for me. If you're a Law McCabe, you know, young lad wanting his chance, sitting on the bench watching Dan Barlaser. If you're an international player, Riley McGree, sitting on the bench not getting the moment watching Dan Barlaser, I don't know what Michael Carrick was thinking. What do you think, Graham?
Well, obviously, I always like McGree to start. I think technically he's our best player. So you've got to play your best players, irrespective of whether you find it tricky or not to fit them into a system. I wasn't averse to Bergzog starting because he did make a good impact at Hull and obviously got the assist for the winner. But I think Bergzog's a better player coming off the bench and stretching teams late on, which might have been beneficial yesterday. I'd have started with Riley, but it's not too much of a problem because Bergzog at the moment is quite lively. He's a good player. But yesterday I was a bit disappointed with him. He seemed more interested in falling over than staying on his feet. He was getting ahead of his man. He had the ball. He should run with it. But he's more interested in wrangling with defenders and trying to win cards, yellow cards from them. So I was a little bit disappointed in his performance. There's a case for maybe bringing Riley and putting him into the middle of the park, but that completely eliminates any element of tackling, I think. If maybe you put him alongside Hackney, we'd be too brittle, I think. Teams would just play through us. So I think Riley's position is probably the left. I've always liked him coming in off the right, but obviously Doak has made that position his own. Rightly so, he's been quality. He probably had one of his best 45 minutes for me yesterday in that first half. I thought he was absolutely brilliant. Unplayable at times. And you're looking at the numbers now that are targeting him. There's 3 or 4 defenders around him, which sometimes could lead itself to a quick switch. 2 Bergzog possibly on the left to free him up. But it was just, like you say, it was sloppy, lethargic, particularly second half. When Balazs on the ball, there's no propensity to push forward and drive forward. And my only bugbear yesterday was probably the lack of ability to pick a shot off when we could have shot. There's numerous times Azaz has sort of wriggled in his way into the box. There is a shot on, but he wants to check back. He wants to play that little finesse pass into somebody, but Latte wasn't making the right runs. He was well channeled in that second half. So it just didn't work, that we were just running into trouble all the time. And the longer the game went on, Cardiff just lapped that up, really. And they'll say they got a deserved point. Ironically, they could have pitched it in the end with the free header at the back. The guy shanked it to the left when he could have just put it across the goal. But, we rode our luck with that one. But we should have been out of sight, really, first half. We didn't kick on from Doak's goal. And like Dom says, once you get that goal, we needed to go and get a second quickly. But it didn't happen. And it's happened, a lot this season, really. We shouldn't be too surprised, really, at the fact that we can't grab a second. The time we did go on to get a second and a third, we still managed to cock it up against Sheffield Wednesday. So it's a story of our season. But as I said before, we're still in that mix. Crazy league. Every other team will say the same. I've got a lot of Leeds friends, and they say we're the best team to go to Ellen Road this season. And I'm not surprised, because we were wide open and they cut through us like a knife through butter. They have the same frustrations playing against a low block. Pretty much every team that goes to Fortress Ellen Road is sitting in 10 behind the ball at times and just leaving one up. So it's not uncommon. There's a lot of teams having the same problems, but we do have to find a way. But my solution would be to just maybe try and shoot a bit more. That old awful saying, if you don't buy a ticket, you don't win a raffle. Keeper could parry it. It could go in off someone's knee. You've got to force them opportunities by shooting, even if it's a scuffed shot. The ball can bobble anywhere in the box, but we have this, like they say, propensity to keep hold of the ball, waiting for that moment. That moment might never ever come. So we've got to force it a little bit.
I just think, Dom, that yesterday, once we went 1-0 up, I wanted the performance to be a little bit more like it was against Burnley at home. I know it was 0-0 against Burnley, but commitment, the players flying at the challenges, solid at the back, creating chances on the break. Once we were 1-0 up against Cardiff, I wanted to see that type of performance, and I didn't see it. I seen players pulling out the challenges, people not quite fancying it in the middle of the park, and it was disappointing. One key thing for me yesterday, Dom, and you've discussed this on your podcast many a time when I listen, Michael Carrick and his substitutions. So yesterday, he's brought Jones on 67 minutes, Gilbert 75, Engel 84 for Bergzog, Azaz and Borges. For me, it didn't work. And I was looking at the bench and I seen Engel and McGree running up and down the line and the shorts on, and I thought, great, he's going to change the left side. He's going to take off Borges, he's going to take off Bergzog and change the left side. And I was all for that. So I was a bit disappointed when I seen him on 67 minutes bring Jones on for Bergzog and then switch Doak, because for me it just didn't work at all again for Michael Carrick. And I thought moving Doak, the player had already been booked who he was up against. He was roasting them first half, as Bandy said. And to move Doak over and bring Jones on, for me, that was the moment where I thought it went wrong for Michael Carrick yesterday.
And although Doak created one chance from the left when he down left at the cup, he didn't have, like Bandy said, he was brilliant in that first half. He was contained. I guess the fact he was contained for 20 minutes at the start of the second half led to the switch. A few of my mates have been saying about that, about the idea of not from the start, but in game, bringing Jones on and moving Doak over the left. But I don't know, I always go back to, you want your best players in the best positions, and Doak's your best player, hands down, Boro's best player, and he's most effective when he's on the right. But as soon as he brought Jones on for Bergzog, you thought at that point, well, he's probably only got one more attacking change in him here, and that's the Azaz change. Is it going to be Gilbert or McGree? Because he wasn't going to change. I said, but the only option up front really was taking Latte off and putting Bergzog up front, but obviously he'd taken him off. I wasn't surprised to see him bring Gilbert on for Azaz, given the impact he'd had at Hull. But Boro lost the way, didn't it? Carrick said it fizzled out. It fizzled out in the second half, and I think he probably made those changes looking for the spark that he found at Hull, but it had the opposite effect. And Bandy said there about Cardiff feeling they deserved the point. Well, they did. The manager said afterwards. It was interesting, really, because he kind of suggested that, and he's not the first manager to say this. It's not the way we'd ideally like to play, but if you come to Boro, and go toe to toe with them, they'll blow you away. I still make the point. I've made this point a few times. One of the most important games of Boro's season was that Leeds Carabao Cup win away, because Paul Warne said it a few days later. Paul Warne was in the stands at Ellen Road that day, and he said he left Ellen Road and thought, there's no way I can try and play them at the weekend. So he stuck 10 men behind the ball, nicked a goal when Jones makes the error, and Derby hold on for a point, and Boro find it difficult to break teams down. And that, I think, set the trend of the season for so many teams, didn't it? And so many teams have followed. So many will continue to follow. Boro at Portsmouth next in the Championship. Portsmouth are better at home than they are away. But they're more likely to try and, even though they're at home, they're more likely to try and make things difficult, aren't they, for Boro, than shutting up shop. I don't think it's a coincidence that Boro have been better against the better teams this season at home. Beat Sheffield United, drew with Burnley. They've got Sunderland Day next month. It's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. On the flip side, Bristol City, Coventry, Portsmouth, Preston, Cardiff now, all teams below them in the table, but all teams who've managed to take them from the Riverside.
Yeah, it's not good enough. And I was going to talk about actually the Riverside atmosphere and get into a little bit about Michael Carrick as well. The atmosphere at the moment is pretty poor, to be honest. You can't blame numbers, because despite Middlesbrough being one of the most expensive in the league to watch, as we know, we're still averaging just around 25,500. Well, it's 25,339, which I think, considering the season, the way it's been up and down, is commendable. But Michael Carrick, his first season at Middlesbrough, 14 home games, 10 wins, with Juba Akpom and the likes, and Giles flying up and down. Since then, 37 home games in the league, 16 wins. I mean, that's pretty appalling as far as I'm concerned. And this has been a thing now for quite a while, and I think it has an effect on the atmosphere, because you never settled as a fan at the Riverside under Michael Carrick. The way we play out from the back, there's a nervousness in the stands. If we go a goal down, there's a nervousness in the stands. Are we going to be able to get back in it? And he targets teams with his tactics and how he thinks he's going to win the games. But unfortunately for Michael Carrick, I think he's been worked out as a manager. And what I mean by that is, if he plays against a good side at the Riverside, they, certainly or even away from home, they know that if you press Middlesbrough at the back and hassle we've got weaknesses there. They know, because we've got Aidan Morris missing, there's a weakness in the midfield with Dan Barlasser. He's not very good with his, facing his own goal under the press. There's a mistake there in the middle of the park. They know we've got a problem at left back. The target with left back, the good sides. And it makes the game very, very difficult for Middlesbrough against the better sides, especially away from home. But also the poor sides now, like you've just mentioned, Dom, starting with, you said, Paul Warne and Derby, they know that if they sit in against Middlesbrough and try to catch one the break or score with a set piece and get the noses in front and sit with 10 behind the ball, the way Michael Carrick wants to play, and he won't change his tactics, more often than not, as them stats suggest, 16 wins from 37, more often than not, the teams get something from Middlesbrough. And I've said this for a while now on here, and I said it to Graham, and I've said it many, many times, and I make no apologies for it. I'm a little bit bored with Michael Carrick's Middlesbrough. I'm a little bit bored with watching Michael Carrick's football. I'm a little bit bored with him as a manager in terms of how he projects himself at interviews, which you can talk about, Dom. He doesn't seem to want to give anything away. He doesn't want to give you any information. He's standoffish. And I'm just getting a little bit fed up with it. And I don't think personally, he's had 3 seasons now, missed out in the playoffs his first season, missed out in the playoffs altogether his second season. This season's looking like if we can just make the playoffs, that's going to be some kind of success. With one of the best sides in the league, to be fair, that's the bare minimum we should be doing this season. If we don't make the playoffs this season, I think it's a disaster, especially with the money that's been spent. And I just don't personally see Middlesbrough ever making the top 2 in the Championship under Michael Carrick as manager. Because, yes, we're always going to play a beautiful football on certain occasions. We can beat the best teams in the league on certain occasions. We can blow teams away on certain occasions, 5 and 6. But consistently, over 46 games, under Michael Carrick's management in football and his reluctance to change his tactics, I always think we're going to fall short. So I'd just be interested to see both your guys' opinions on where we are as a football club moving forward towards the end of the season. Is the playoffs still a bare minimum? And if we don't make the playoffs, I'll start with you, Dom. Do you think it's time for a change?
I think I agree that not making the playoffs this season is the playoffs has to be the minimum target this season. At the start, I maintain that this squad is as good as, and clearly there are mitigating factors here. You look at the players who've been out recently and the injuries and the misfortune in certain elements there. But I still maintain that this squad is as good or as strong as any in the division, really. I felt at the start of the season that automatic promotion was a realistic aim. Spoke to Dan Ballassi about that yesterday, and he said that in the dressing room they still haven't given up on that. I think there's a few things to consider over the last couple of years, in both Carrick's first season and last year. Boro got stronger as the season went on. You've got to hope that that's the case here. Yeah. The concern is Boro don't really seem to be learning from the mistakes, or not learning from the mistakes, not really able to address the issues that are plaguing them again and again and again. So, not, and this sounds a bit daft really, 4 or 5 days after you get a win all in the last minute, but not finding a way in certain games, coming unstuck against teams who are coming in, sitting up shop like that. And the other thing is, and again, Boro have conceded 1 goal in 3 games, but defensively was, the defence was an issue only a fortnight ago when Boro conceded 3 goals in 4 games. I still think Carrick is trying to find that right balance, that right attacking and defence, the attack and defence balance, because other than that 3 games when Boro scored, 15 goals in the 3 games, 6, 5 and 4. But other than that, when they've been scoring goals, on the whole, they've been conceding goals. And over the last couple of weeks, they've tightened up at the back and they've addressed those issues that were plaguing them in December. But they couldn't find a way through against Burnley. It took them to the 90th minute to score against Hull, and they couldn't build on their opening goal against Cardiff. And despite having 75% possession, only had 1 more shot than them. On the flip side, unbeaten in 6 now, still in the top 6, with the feeling of, and like this seems daft really as we get into January, but still feels like probably the best is to come from Boro. I get that there's a time where you say, well, is the best going to come this season? But it still really feels like we're waiting for Boro to consistently click into gear. And I think that's the frustration of this season. We have seen flashes of how good this team can be. We've seen them blow teams away. We've seen them, I know there was reserve teams or whatever, but we've seen them play Leeds off the park at Ellen Road. We've heard countless managers talking about the strength of the squad and how good Boro are and how well coached they are. I think that's the frustration really, when you take all those factors into play. Yeah, Boro's still right there in the mix, but as we all know, as the players know, as Michael Carrick knows, they should have more points on the board.
Graham, I'm just going to come to you on Michael Carrick.
Yeah.
Do you see Middlesbrough ever making a push for a top 2 position than Michael Carrick? Or do you think Michael Carrick is going to have to change his tactics and mix it up more against sides on certain occasions?
No, I 100% absolutely think we've got the correct manager in terms of progressing season upon season. Are we progressing though, Graham? I've just mentioned there this is his 3rd season. We are at the moment, because we've got more points at this stage than we did last season, so that's a positive. We're in 5th position in a very tricky, competitive league. It's hard to navigate your way through this league because results come thick and fast. There's 46 games.
I can hear Middlesbrough fans screaming at us through the screen, by the way, saying this is probably the weakest championship that it's been for a number of years.
We hear that every season. Everybody says it's the weakest championship. It's only because there's a few teams above us. We're still in the mix. Can we make top 2? Probably not now. It was my aim all season. Going by what Dom said as well, it's a very, very strong, capable squad, but it shoots itself in the foot all too often. But that is probably down to the way we play. It's probably fantasy land to suggest that we can have that mix of, say, a watertight Aitor Karanka team and a wide open Michael Carrick team. If we had that balance, we probably would be looking at winning the league, and winning it with 10 games to spare. But no team has that. The teams that are at the top two have a little bit more steel, a bit more aggression. They're a bit horrible. They're a bit nasty. Everybody hates Leeds. Everybody hates Sheffield United. Nobody likes Wilder. Nobody likes Farker because they've got that grittiness about us. We're just a little bit too pretty. We're a bit of a vanity project at times. We look fantastic on the eye. We do. This Carrick ball business, which a lot of people talk about, it's no coincidence. We do play some beautiful stuff, but I'd like to see us just be a little bit more workmanlike, a bit more industrious, a bit more horrible. Let's learn how to kill time. Let's learn how to see a game out. At times we've done that. We did that at home to Millwall when we got a goal ahead and they made it hard and we dug in. We've performed admirably against Burnley twice. I thought we were actually better at their place than we were at home, but we still played well at home. Took 2 points from them. They'll be in the mix. They're slightly ahead of schedule for us as a Leeds and Sheffield United, but we're not too far away. Fingers crossed we have a positive transfer window, but I'm not getting too excited because I think the whole transfer window thing is nonsense, to be honest. Pre-season's the time to bring in players and bed them in and get a good start. So I'm hopeful we can bring in one or two to strengthen us and make us a bit more hard to beat, really, rather than too wide open, because the midfield two at the moment concerns me greatly in terms of us not being able to compete and dig in and put tackles in and destroy. When we lost Morris, I did state at the time that it could be season defining. I mean, when he was injured, I said we probably won't see him this year, which was obviously last year, and we're already into this year, game gone. It doesn't look like he'd be available for the cup game next week. And then I think Carrick had said he's a couple of weeks away, but you can always add another couple of weeks onto that, being the Boro pessimist. So we need him back. I think he will give the team a different dimension, make us a little bit more compact, and we shall see what happens when he's back. But we need a few more bodies in as well.
Morris has been a huge miss.
His quality, isn't he, Dom? I couldn't believe what I was watching when he come in. Wow.
I mean, take Doak apart. He's the player of the first half of the season, wasn't he, Morris? But I think as well to have Howson missing at the same time.
Yeah,
I was gutted for Howson on a personal level and from Boro's perspective because obviously the frustrations of the early start of the season. Then he comes back excellent in that Millwall game. I think
that's the game. That's the game we ground it out, and he was
no coincidence that I think the Boro grounded out in that game when you've got Howson in there. And like nothing against Barlaser and Hackney. I take your point, Diggle, but Howson's different, and I think that's the thing. Barlaser and Hackney, I've always just felt that they're both better when they're playing with Howson or Morris rather than playing with each other.
I agree.
Barlaser said yesterday he was asked about kind of his running the team and playing with Hackney, and he said, he's got more legs than me, he said jokingly, and said, I kind of sit deep and let him do his thing. Well, that's probably not Barlaser's game. Barlaser would like to be the one, wouldn't he, picking the passes in front and trying to dictate play. He was Rotherham's match winner, wasn't he, when he was there? Yeah. However many assists and goals he'd scored when he joined in that January. Think that, but lose Morris, huge blow, but then not having Howson available at the same time has just added to that. Yeah.
It's true, as I say, with Barlaser, when he was at Rotherham, he got a lot of goals and assists over 2 or 3 seasons there. And he's come to Middlesbrough and he's got 1 goal and 70-odd appearances. So the stats are quite stark when you look at them from Rotherham. I know he played a little while in the lower levels for Rotherham, but his stats, assist-wise and goals-wise, are quite a contrast when you look at them. Regarding Johnny Howson, actually, I'm just thinking there, guys, what we probably missed was Johnny Howson in the North Stand yesterday, wasn't it? Really dictating the tunes and having the songs like he was at Hull. Maybe that's brilliant, wasn't it? Yeah. That's probably what we missed yesterday. Get him in the North Stand with the boys and get the atmosphere going. Maybe that next home game, if he's not fit, get him in the North Stand.
You know how players have sort of community obligations where they've got to visit hospitals and things? I think if you're injured or suspended, you should rotate and take turns in the stand. each
Yeah.
player. So it'd be quite interesting.
One in the north, one in the north, one in the south. Every home.
It would certainly lift the atmosphere, wouldn't it?
It would, yeah.
At that point, Howson was spotted at Hull. We were just chipping away. We didn't look like we were going to get anything. And then as soon as he was spotted, the songs were coming out, and it just lifted things a bit. I'm not saying it was the catalyst for the win, but it gave fans a bit of buoyancy at that point. It was great.
Class.
It was class.
Fair play to win. Fair play to win.
He was loving it.
I'm glad you did. And yeah, class.
Just makes his legendary status even better, doesn't it? Because in years to come, people will still remember that and go
100%.
look back.
I think he's out now, Dom.
This is the thing, isn't it? I was going to say just quickly, like, everyone knows Howson's a Leeds fan. Everyone knows Howson came up late. But it's clear that Boro like completely got under his skin. And like, I don't think you can throw like statements like this around in football willy-nilly. But he loves the club. I genuinely think he loves the club now. And he's bought into all that's around it. We've done loads of interviews with him where he's talked about like going home with his little uns in the car and talking about the game and getting the feedback from his little uns and how much it means and you know his little uns asking what certain players are like. And I think over time Howson's kind of increasingly shown the human side, hasn't he? Like really, really good fella, great captain, been a great player for Boro, which adds to the frustration of him not being available now because this would have been his running the team, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. He's an iconic figure now. And that image will live long in the memory of him with the arms out in the crowd. Class.
Yeah, class.
So I hear he's out now with severe vocal cord damage. Is that right, Don?
Just going to look back on the Christmas, the last 6 games, really. You know, Middlesbrough have been unbeaten, drawn 4, winning 2. I was looking at one of our friends of the show and somebody you know very well, Dom, Mr. Anthony Vickers. He posted on X yesterday and it just got us thinking. He posted on the plus side, Boro on a solid and productive run despite injuries and firmly in the top 6. You just need to keep chipping away and put pressure on the teams above. He also said, we are breathing down their necks of the rivals despite missing players and not playing at our best. That's what you need to do. Now, I know he's now on the payroll at the club, Dom, as our friend Anthony, but that's what you need to do, breathe down the necks. So he's talking about, we beat Millwall at home 1-0 with the Millwall manager's last game. 3-3 against Plymouth, who've now sacked Wayne Rooney. They've took 5 points from the last 33 available and not won a game. Sheffield Wednesday, 3-0 up at half-time. Boro capitulated with 3-3. 0-0 against Burnley was a good performance, as I've mentioned. 1-0 away to Hull, saved in the last minute goal against a poor Hull side who could get relegated. And 1-1 yesterday with Cardiff, who are 23rd in the league, only one away win all season. 10 points from a possible 18. I personally don't think that's productive. I think it's a missed opportunity. I think we should have been having 14, 15 points from that 18 comfortably, which would have put us maybe a point below Sunderland, where you're heading today, Dom.
I think that like spell of games there probably sums up the season so far in that like it's like absolutely not disastrous. Clearly it's not disastrous. But there's just that frustration of drop points, like 3 or 4 drop points. Should have had a couple more points at Plymouth. Clearly should have had a couple more points at Sheffield Wednesday. Probably should have had a couple more points on Saturday. And suddenly you've got 6 points and then you are right there. And I think the thing is, that gap between the top two, there's clearly quite a gulf now. But it hasn't really changed over the course of the last 2 or 3 weeks. It seemed to grow over the matter of 2 or 3 weeks and then has like steadied really. And that's probably the frustration that it isn't completely, that isn't beyond Boro's reach. But clearly what Boro need to do is string together wins. And I think if they only done it twice this season, won 2 games on the bounce once and then 3 games on the bounce when they had those games. Well, clearly that, for any team that want to achieve anything at the top end of any division, some stage you need to win games. And Boro now, you look and think, well, they need to win 5 out of 6, 4 out of 5, 5 out of 6. That's just to get themselves there. Then there's the matter of staying there. But you cross that bridge when you get to it, don't you? If you've been buoyed by 4 wins out of 5, 5 wins out of 6, other teams might have a wobble. But I think before we even really talk about the top two, Boro have got to do that. Boro have to win 4 of the next 5 or 5 of the next 6. Then you have that conversation. I'd be pretty confident at finishing in the top 6, just because I don't see, for all those questions about are Boro going to string together those wins, I don't see a major drop off either in terms of 3 defeats on the bounce or what have you. And I'm not sure the teams below are good enough or consistent enough. But finishing in the top 6 alone, I'm not sure that's success this season. The aim is to go up, isn't it?
That's right, yeah, definitely. Dom, we've got you on the show, so you're the man with your ear to the ground on all things transfer related, and I know a lot of supporters will be pleased you're on the show for that, because you've brought a couple of big stories lately regarding Ben Doak situation, the Latte situation, and knocked a couple of transfer rumours on the head for us Boro fans. So, as it stands at the moment, Dom, obviously it's your opinion, and you know you have a talk to Michael Carrick after games and before the press conferences and stuff. To start with, what's the situation in your mind and how you see it regarding, first of all, Latte and Ben Doak?
Well, on Doak, that one was something out of the blue, I thought, this week, because for all there's been a lot of talk, really unfounded talk, about will Liverpool recall him. That's never been a real concern. Clearly, you never say never. All it took was Salah to get injured or a couple of Liverpool forwards to get injured, and Liverpool might have suddenly been in a position where they had a decision to make. But the feeling throughout the first half of the season has been, if nothing changes, Liverpool are delighted with how Doak's loan is playing out. It is playing exactly as Liverpool would have hoped when he signed in the summer. Why are they going to bring him back and risk him sitting on the bench, bit part player in the second half of the season? So I was never overly concerned about Doak. I'll be honest, I never really overly considered the fact of the prospect of Premier League clubs throwing money at him to make him permanent signing in January. And I thought what was interesting, and clearly we're all just helpless and going to have to see how this plays out. What was interesting on Friday when Crystal Palace had their £15 million bid rejected and Ipswich £16 million was the wording from those who cover Liverpool, who follow Liverpool, who are in the know there, was that Liverpool want to keep Doak. They don't want to sell him. They do have high hopes for him. They're delighted with how the Boro loan's playing out. But it wasn't, he's not for sale at any price. The kind of suggestion was Liverpool value him at £30 million. Now, I can't see Palace or Ipswich getting to 30 million, but will they get to 25? If you've started at 16, I don't know. I mean, it's monopoly money, isn't it, for us sat here? But if you're a Premier League club and you've started at 16, can you get to 23, 24? Does that give Liverpool a decision to make? Doak is loving it at Boro. Doak would be more than happy to spend the year at Boro. And I previously kind of, again, just in my own mind, this hasn't come from anyone I've spoken to at the club, I've thought, Doak spends the full season at Boro. If Boro were to win promotion, you could see Liverpool making the case of, right, we'll give him another year on loan at Boro. Let's see what he can do in the Premier League. He's only 19. Let's see what he can do in the Premier League. Even if you're 21 and 22 and you're not playing regularly at Liverpool, let's be honest, that's no disgrace. He's got time on his side. I think the fact he's played so well for Boro, the fact he's played for Wales or Scotland in the first half of the season has clearly alerted these Premier League clubs. And it's just a case of waiting now. I think the positives are, Doak showed on Saturday it's not going to bother him, didn't he? He's going to just get on with things. And while he's here, he's going to get his head down and continue having an impact. Like we were saying in the press room after the game yesterday, will he play in that Blackburn Cup game? I suspect he'll have probably been rested anyway in that game. The problem is now, like suddenly the minute he's rested, it becomes a story, doesn't it? Where you've got nuisances like us asking Michael Carrick about him afterwards, and then there's Lath. Now, clearly that speculation's ramped up over the course of the last month or so, and I think it's ramped up because his agent has been doing various bits of talking again, as he has done over the course of the last few months, really, on and off. The Leicester stuff was nonsense this week. There'd been no contact from Leicester. I hadn't even heard, and this isn't to say that Leicester are interested. They might be, but I hadn't heard them mentioned at all prior to waking up on Friday morning and seeing the reports that had broken late on Thursday night. But there'd been no contact. There'd certainly been no bid. There'd been no contact. And from all the conversations I had on Friday, if Premier League clubs are going to bid this month, and really I think those two clubs that have been mentioned again and again are Ipswich and West Ham. That's not to say there won't be other clubs interested. That's not to say the clubs won't be clubs from overseas interested as well. But it'd have to be significantly more than £12 million.
Yeah.
I'm always reluctant to like put figures on it because you held an account on them, aren't you? And like we don't know, do we? We don't know. But Boro rejected £20 million in the summer. He's scored 10 goals since then. We're in the January window, which is a notoriously difficult window, and the power's in the hands of the selling club. It's not like this is a player who's approaching the end of his contract. So Boro are in a position of power there. The complicating factor is Tommy Conway's injury.
Yeah.
Carrick said yesterday he's still a number of weeks away. Even without that Conway injury,
I'm sighing. It's like the typical Boro meme.
It's a Boro meme.
He'd have had to have been replaced, wouldn't he? Latte would have had to have been replaced even without the
100%. Yeah.
And Boro, Boro know. Clearly, Boro know that. Boro have targets in mind. You don't lose your best centre forward and not replace him. Again, it's just a case of seeing how it plays out from Boro's perspective. Like on Latte, the earlier the better if you can get a replacement in place. But then the earlier on the flip side, the earlier he goes, the more you're going to be without a centre forward if you haven't got a striker to come through the door straight away and with Conway out injury. So it's a really
that would be catastrophic, wouldn't it? If we let Latte go without a replacement, we went 3 or 4 games without a centre forward. It's going to be catastrophic. So I can't see Middlesbrough doing that. And I agree with you, Dom. It's got to be for Latte to go. It's got to be 20 million plus if we rejected that in the summer. In my opinion, I think it's got to be 20 million plus. Then if he goes for 20 million plus, can you really have a go at the club for a player that they spent £3 million on? You £4 million on. You can't really, can you? So.
Well, let's be honest. Like, and I know we've had this conversation again and again. How many times have people like us, fans like us, sat and talked about Brighton and Brentford and their model? Well, part of the success of their model is selling players and knowing when to sell players. Now, Boro clearly, in an ideal world, do not want to sell Lath this summer, but this January, sorry. But like Rodgers last year, that's success of the model. If you're bringing in a player for X and selling them for whatever times that, 12, 18 months down the line. But key to make the Brighton and Brentford and whoever else model success is having the replacements, isn't it? Knowing when to sell because you've got the replacement ready to go. So I remember like Brentford countless times with centre forwards in the Championship years when they're selling a centre forward and you're thinking like that's a risky game. But then they bring someone in who does better. Brighton have done it, haven't they, in the Premier League? That's clearly the challenge. And what you'd say with Boro is, they sold Morgan Rogers last January, but coming in wasn't a replacement, but coming in was Finn Azaz, who's been Boro's most effective forward player over the course of the 12 months on the whole. They've had real success over the course of the last couple of years in doing that. But doing it with your centre forward is probably the biggest challenge, I think.
Yeah. Are there transfer pieces, Dom? We've got Anthony Dijksteel out of contract in the summer. Do we see him getting signed up this window? We've also got the goalkeeping situation. Senny Dieng still out injured. Is there a possibility Middlesbrough could bring in a new goalkeeper with the injuries and stuff like that? Any chance on Dijksteel new contract or a new goalkeeper turning up at the Riverside?
The Dijksteel one's a tricky one, because at the start of the summer, I think the expectation was Dijksteel was going to go. Been a bit part player for a couple of years. You had Luke Ayling, who'd been excellent the second half of last season. Tommy Smith, the thinking was that he was going to be back sooner rather than later. Obviously, that isn't how it's played out. I would suspect that I haven't actually spoken to anyone about the Dijksteel matter, but I would suspect you for now, you just kind of see how that plays out because, again, like obviously finances have a major impact on this. But Dijksteel's happy at Boro.
I'd imagine he'll be keen, he'd be happy to sign an extension in the summer if that situation came about. But from Boro's perspective, if you win promotion this season, and you're probably looking at it and thinking we need a couple of new right backs. Smith's out of contract, Aiden's been hit and miss and injured this season. Dykesteel's out of contract and couldn't get his game until this year. So I think it probably makes sense for Boro just to sit tight on that one for now. The keeper one's obviously a bit of a curveball because that's gone from 0 to 100 really in the last few weeks, hasn't it? Credit to Tom Glover because an Australian international, third choice keeper. I know we don't like to think players do this, but it would have been easy to throw your toys out the pram, wouldn't it? Or push for a move or try and get out. Credit to him for sitting tight really in the first half of the season. And I think he's done well in the 3 games he's been in. Great save early on Saturday. Could do nothing about the goal. 2 clean sheets before that. Bryn's clearly out for the season. Hemming's come back and has gone again to St Mirren, and Stephen Robinson, the St Mirren manager, is already talking about trying to make that deal permanent.
All right.
I suspect there'll probably be a deal to be done there in the summer. If Boro had hopes for Hemming, you'd have thought that he kept him around for the second half of this season. Dieng is back in light training, said Carrick yesterday, but isn't back training fully with the group yet. You've got a couple of weeks now until you get to the Portsmouth game. I suspect Boro will see how that plays out in the next couple of weeks, see where we're at with Dieng a fortnight down the line, and then go from there. If Dieng's fit, then you've got Dieng and Glover. That's fine. It's if there's I don't know, like a curveball Dieng exit or whatever on the cards before the end of January. Clearly, then you'd have to bring someone in, but there's been no talk of that as the yet. So let's just see how that plays out in the next couple of weeks. I did say at Hull just finally, and then I'll let Bandy talk. So I've trimmed it on here for the last 15-20 minutes. I did say at Hull at the start of the game, like had you said to Michael Carrick on the first day of the season that on New Year's Day he'd have had Tom Glover in goal, Anthony Dykesteele at right back, and Lucas Engel at left back. Nothing against those players, but Glover was third choice keeper. Dykesteele was down the pecking order at the start of the season, and you signed Neto Borges, you'd have probably thought, what's gone on here? How have we got to this stage?
Yeah.
But they all kept a clean sheet, so fair play, they did the job.
Graham, transfer window, would you like to see a certain signing come in a certain position? And also, the Ryan Giles, would you be happy to see him return to the Riverside this January, or do you think that ship sailed?
I think that ship sailed, if I'm honest. He looked like a little boy lost at Hull. I don't think he wants to be there. I'm not sure what he wants to do, actually. He just doesn't seem that sort of player again. I think it would be a massive risk bringing him back. I don't think he would automatically slot into that left-back role and bomb up and down the pitch. He'd still be culpable for bad defending, because I was never a firm believer that he was a good defender in the first place. He's probably better suited to be like a left winger or a left back who likes to play high up the pitch. But he'd still get picked off in the same way that Neto Borges gets picked off. It's the way we play. I would like to see us sign defenders who can actually defend, if that makes sense. Just orthodox left backs, orthodox right backs. It'd be nice to have some cover for Dykesteele and for Borges. I don't know in what shape or form that would come, but just a couple of loans, possibly just to tide us over in case that they get injured. But the main one for me is getting a pivotal central midfielder on loan just to see us through the season, because I think, like I said before, I think it's brittle with that dynamic of Barlaza and Hackney. They're too similar and they're too weak together. So I just think it would be nice to have a balance between aggression and finesse, because we don't know how long Johnny's going to be out for. Again, the Morris one is undetermined. So, yeah, just a pivotal central midfielder with a bit of bite, a bit of aggression. It'd be nice if Grant Ledbetter was 21-year-old again, That would be perfect, because we'll be well on our way by then. But I'm hoping that they are looking, because that is where games are won for me in central midfield. That's where we can dominate, but that's also where we get overrun. So that's a bit of a problem.
Dom, just to finish on the transfer, carry on. Is the Ryan Giles deal completely dead in your thoughts, or would you still not be too surprised if he turned up at the Riverside this month?
I mean, you never know, do you, with Ryan Giles? But what I would say is, if you take his Boro loan spell out, like clearly you can't because he was such a huge success here. But since then, he hasn't been able to get a game at Luton.
Yeah.
He couldn't get a game for one of the worst teams in the Championship at Hull for a little while. I suspect Michael Carrick could say, well, look how, but he could still be a huge success in my team. But could he come in and make an impact like he did the first time? Let's be honest, I'm saying nothing that's never been said before. And I get why he did it to an extent, but it was a huge mistake joining Luton rather than Boro in that summer. It was a pivotal stage in his career, wasn't it? And he knew he had a manager and a team and a system and a setup and a club where he was just a good fit. Now I know, he is someone who's never going to play in the Premier League, clearly, and I'm on about me, not Ryan Giles. So I've never been, so I can see why he's made the decision. It's a chance to play regularly, but Luton were always going to be under the pump in that Premier League season, weren't they? There were always going to be a team under the cosh of defending, and that isn't Giles's game. I know we're going over old ground here, and it doesn't make a difference now, but I think he's still paying the price for that decision. But Boro still haven't looked comfortable at left back so far this season, have they? I don't think Borges has been helped by the system and the setup and the shifting in front, McGree and Bergzorg. I think it was the Leeds game when Borges had a rough old time, but McGree had a poor night that night, didn't he? And wasn't helped there. I think, I don't know what you lads think. I think if nothing happened this month, no one went and no one came in, that's a decent window for Boro.
Yeah, I agree. If Michael Carrick wakes up and February's ticked in and he's still got Doak and he's still got Latte and Vandenberg and Hackney and all these big hitters and nobody's left and he's getting a few back from injury like you mentioned.
A few back from injury, definitely.
House and Conway's a big miss. Yeah. You'd be happy with that, wouldn't you? Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
I don't think we've ever had a sustained period where we've had nobody injured. So we've never really had our best 11 out on the pitch all season, really, have we? Which is a concern.
Just to finish off, guys, because I appreciate Dom's short time because he's off to watch Sunderland today, unfortunately for Dom. Just briefly on the FA Cup coming up, Blackburn, 12 o'clock next Saturday at the Riverside. Not really getting the juices flowing, if I've got to be brutally honest. Do Middlesbrough need a cup run this season? Or are you a believer in actually a cup run could ignite us into a little bit of form like it did in the League Cup last season?
Yes. After you, Bandy.
We all need it. Everyone needs a cup run. Sporting Glory, we're in it to win it, aren't we? There's no point in entering a cup if you don't have any aspirations to go further in it and possibly win it. Who'd have thought, we'd ever win a League Cup? But you've got to understand the constraints of the squad at the moment. We are depleted, bare bones stuff. So it's probably a game we could do without. Probably a game Blackburn could do without as well, to be honest. I don't think any manager will be too concerned, whoever goes out. But it'd be nice to progress. But I think it's a good opportunity to put in a few fringe players and see if they can perform and cement a place, in a starting 11 in the league.
I agree with that, Graham, actually. I think that's a good point, well made. And I sort of put out a team that I thought possibly could play against Blackburn next week. And I was thinking Glover, Engel, Clark, Edmondson, Dykesteel, McCabe and Hackney, Isaiah Jones, Alex Gilbert, Riley McGree, and maybe Bergzorg up front. But it's like players like McCabe and Clark and Edmondson and Jones and Gilbert who are just on the periphery of the first team. It's a good opportunity for them to get 90 minutes in the legs, Dom, yeah?
Yeah, 100%. I'd throw Micah Hamilton in there as well.
Yeah.
And I think there's certain players who've been victims really of Boro getting knocked out the League Cup early. So if we go back a season, like the League Cup was the making of Morgan Rogers at Boro, wasn't it? If Boro didn't have that League Cup run, Rogers wouldn't have had the opportunity and probably wouldn't have ended up signing for Aston Villa in January. Had Boro got a round or two deeper in the League Cup, might have been opportunities for the likes of Gilbert, although I know he got injured. Hamilton, who clearly needs the football. So I agree absolutely with everything both of you have said there. I think Carrick will make changes. I don't think that team will be far away at all from the team that starts next week.
Let it go.
But as Bandy said, Cups are what it's all about. Like when we on Man and Scott's pod, when we were talking a couple of weeks ago, and we did like an end of year review. We did the highlight of the season, Chelsea home.
There you go.
They're the games that stick with you as fans. They're the memories that stick with fans. Like when my little ones grow up, and when my eldest is finally interested in footy, even though I'm trying and there's absolutely no inclination yet there whatsoever. But and I'm talking to him about like growing up watching Boro and going to certain games. Like the games I'll be on about, other than the one-offs like the Brighton League games, the cup games aren't they? Stoya, Basel, Cardiff, that cup game for the absolute
Tottenham at home.
But they're
Josh Coburn's goal, that'll remember.
Manchester United away twice.
Exactly.
Man United away, even if you're not going to win it, occasions and the memories, and I can't imagine that Blackburn game being one of those games that's going to stick in the memory for years to come. But you never know what's down the line if you get a result.
It seems to be either or these days. I remember maybe 20 years ago, teams would enter everything and go and try and win everything. Now,
like Liverpool are doing this year, good.
But they obviously, we don't have their riches or their depth of squad. But you still got to believe and think, well, why not play a full strength team against Blackburn and just hopefully get through? But it is a risk because we've got too many injuries. So Carrick is 100% not going to do that. So I think you're right to go.
The thing is, what I always think is, what you don't want in an FA Cup tie is a team in the same division. At least it's at home. Like Blackburn away, I know you get the full Darwin end, but even then, like 12 o'clock, FA Cup third round.
I'm desperate for Everton away, Dom. Last season at Goodison, it'd be nice to go back there again. We've had some good epic games with them in the FA Cup.
Or Newcastle
away, that'd be nice, but
that's been a while.
That's what we want. A big draw. Get through against Blackburn. Get a big draw. Give the fans a nice away trip somewhere to a Premier League ground, and then get back to cracking on to promotion in the Championship. Is the aim.
There you go.
Yeah. Anyway, guys, look, I know you're stuck for time, Dom, so we'll call it up for another one. Thanks for coming on, Dom. Much appreciated. Brilliant.
No, thanks for having me. Really enjoyed that. Thanks,
Graham. Well done, mate.
Thank you very much, Graham. Again, spot on.
Great. That.
Right, okay, Boro fans. Remember, don't say typical Boro. Watch it, listen to it, and we'll see you again next week.